Hello and welcome. The term Tulpa first became popular in the West when it appeared in the writings of Alexandra David Neal, an early 20th century explorer who described her experiences with Tibetan mystical practices in her book Magic and Mystery in Tibet. Within the last decade, however, the term has been appropriated by a relatively small internet subculture, purporting to have developed techniques for creating separate beings within the mind. According to the website tulpa.io, a tulpa is an autonomous entity existing within the brain of a host. They are distinct from the host in that they possess their own personality, opinions, and actions, which are independent of the host's, and are conscious entities in that they possess awareness of themselves and the world. A fully formed tulpa is, or highly resembles to an indistinguishable point, an actual other sentient, sapient being co-inhabiting with the host consciousness. When I first heard about this phenomenon, I was extremely skeptical. The claim that it's possible to create another sentient being inside your mind is pretty extraordinary, and the evidence offered in support of the claim is often anecdotal. There's a diversity of opinion within the Tulpa community about the finer details of the creation process, but most techniques seem to consist of a prolonged meditative practice in which one visualizes and interacts with an imagined being of their choice. Some practices also include the deliberate construction of a detailed personality, or even the creation of a dreamlike inner world for the tulpa to inhabit. The hope is that after weeks, months, or even years of interaction with an imagined being, it will eventually develop the ability to speak and act independently from its creator. From an outside perspective, it's easy to see why tulpa creators are so often disbelieved. It isn't just that these creation practices lack scientific validation, but also that they challenge popular understandings of human identity and the capabilities of the brain. Despite my doubts, I was fascinated by the experiences reported by members of the community. I learned that the thoughts, actions, and emotions of a tulpa are almost universally experienced by the host as somehow foreign or even alien. Unlike the imaginary friends common among children, tulpas are said to be capable of acting outside the conscious control of their hosts. Many people report that their tulpas can, with permission, take control of their bodies, a practice known as possession. Further, a number of individuals claim that they can switch places with the tulpa altogether, becoming partially or in rare cases even entirely unaware of what is happening in the physical world. For now, let's set aside any questions about the ontological status of tulpas, and just try to establish whether or not there is sufficient reason to believe in the validity of the experiences reported by tulpa creators. This can be an uncomfortable question to ask. After all, who am I to question another person's subjective experience of the world? However, due to the relatively small size of the community and the intrinsic susceptibility of the human mind to bias and confabulation, I think it's worth spending some time explaining why I think the experiences reported by tulpa creators ought to be taken seriously. I think the strongest single piece of evidence that tulpa creators aren't misrepresenting their experiences is the cross-cultural prevalence of similar phenomena. Non-pathological voice hearing has been extremely common throughout human history. There have been a plethora of human societies in which hearing the voice of an ancestor, a spirit, or even a god was considered a normative, healthy part of life, at least for some subset of the population. Such a subculture exists even now, embedded deeply within the fabric of modern American Christianity. Dr. Tanya Luhrmann, a professor of anthropology at Stanford University, spent years learning about Christians who report experiencing profoundly personal back-and-forth communication with God. Dr. Luhrmann's research suggests that within the context of certain Christian communities, hearing the voice of God is a learnable skill, facilitated by the guidance and support of the congregation. Most importantly for this video, the methods utilized to start communicating with God are remarkably similar to those developed completely independently by tulpa creators to speak with their tulpas. Some members of these faith communities also have experiences where they believe that spiritual entities take control of their bodies, establishing a clear connection to the practice of possession in the tulpa community. But these types of experiences are by no means unique to the strongly religious. It isn't uncommon for fiction writers to report that their characters occasionally come alive to them in unexpected ways. The process of creating a detailed character for a story isn't really that different from the personality construction techniques utilized by tulpa creators. Indeed, it is surprisingly common for writers to post about their experiences in tulpa creation forums, reporting that a character they wrote has been speaking with them for years, long before the Tulpa community even existed. It seems implausible that all of these people could be outright lying about their subjectivity, and the prevalence of Tulpa-like experiences among those with no prior exposure to the community rules out conformity or group-mediated self-deception as explanations for people's reports. In light of the existence of these phenomena, as well as many more I don't have time to discuss here, I think we have plenty of reason to believe that the experiences reported by Tulpa creators are broadly accurate, and moreover that they reflect an innate adaptive human capacity to perceive certain aspects of one's own mind as foreign. Taking a step back, even if we accept that it really is possible to create a Tulpa, that doesn't explain why anyone would want to do so. Hearing voices in your head, especially without a culturally sanctioned religious explanation, is strongly stigmatized in many contemporary societies. From the outside, it can be difficult to understand what there is to gain from learning to speak to another entity in your head. For many, the motivation to create a Tulpa stems from some combination of curiosity and desire for companionship. Hosts often report developing very strong connections with their Tulpas, learning to voluntarily share thoughts, sensations, and emotions. Imagine co-inhabiting your brain with a close, caring friend who can offer a useful, qualitatively different perspective on the happenings of your everyday life. Further, a lot of Tulpa creation practices are essentially modified forms of meditation, which is now well known to have a myriad of beneficial effects all on its own. The potential benefits of Tulpa creation practices have even garnered a bit of attention in academia. Work by Dr. Samuel Vissier, an anthropologist and cognitive scientist at McGill University, suggests that Tulpa creation may in some cases help people cope with pre-existing mental illness, and I quote, "The most common conditions reported by respondents, excluding social anxiety, were in order of frequency Asperger's syndrome, attention deficit disorders, general anxiety, depression, and obsessive-compulsive disorder. 93.7% of respondents expressed that taking up tulpamancy, another term for Tulpa creation, had made their condition better." I'll link the paper I'm quoting in the video description. It's a really worthwhile read for anyone interested in an academic perspective on this topic, although I should point out that its results are only tentative, and that much more research would be necessary in order to establish a causal connection between Tulpa creation and improved mental health. Now, I could speculate about the various mechanisms by which having a Tulpa might affect mental illnesses, for better or worse, but I think it would be more appropriate to let members of the community speak for themselves. In the near future, I'd like to interview some Tulpa creators about their experiences with mental illness, and upload those conversations separately as supplementary material for this video. Up until now, we've focused on the experiences induced by Tulpa creation practices without giving much thought to what a Tulpa actually is, or whether Tulpas can be said to exist as entities at all. I saved this topic for last because in my opinion the pragmatic consequences of Tulpa creation are much more important than the ontological status of Tulpas themselves. After all, there isn't even any real consensus on the precise nature of our own existence, and emerging neuroscientific evidence poses some serious challenges to our intuitions about the sense of self. Personally, my position is that Tulpas are not independent agents capable of authoring their own thoughts and actions, but neither are hosts. Even though it often feels as though we are discrete, coherent agents who persist through time and exert top-down control over the body, it's now much more scientifically plausible that the sense of self results from complex interactions between a number of independently manipulable processes. Further, we've yet to identify any single region of the brain constituting the core of human identity. In my opinion, the self is really nothing more than an appearance, a convincing illusion created by the complex interplay between thoughts, sensations, memories, and feelings of ownership and volition. To be clear, I'm perfectly willing to use the language of agency and selfhood when it's useful. My point is really just that these labels are pragmatic. We use them because they facilitate our functioning in everyday life. However, the ordinary conception of selfhood might be insufficient to account for certain fringe cases, like brains with multiple apparently separate self-constructs. For a much clearer and more detailed articulation of this viewpoint, I highly recommend philosopher Daniel Dennett's paper, The Self as a Center of Narrative Gravity. Under this view, the question of whether or not Tulpas really exist becomes a lot less salient and might not even be well defined. This is, of course, just my own perspective on the topic. There are a wide variety of opinions within the community about the nature of tulpas and their relationships with hosts, and in the absence of a comprehensive scientific understanding of human identity, I think the best thing to do is to remain agnostic, or at the very least open-minded about the different possibilities. I know that some people have a strong initial impression that tulpas can't possibly be real, and that their creators must be either lying or delusional. I believe that a certain degree of skepticism is warranted whenever approaching a phenomenon like this, but I suspect that some of the animus directed at the tulpa creation community is fueled not by hard-nosed rationality, but by a discomfort with the ways in which the community challenges deeply ingrained assumptions about personhood and identity. Most of us are conditioned from a very early age to treat each human body as containing a single persistent identity. This axiom serves as a foundation for both our interpersonal relationships as well as our societal institutions. The deliberate generation of new self-constructs, complete with their own thoughts, personalities, and desires, is a flagrant performative rejection of this axiom. And while it can be uncomfortable when our core beliefs about ourselves are called into question, that discomfort is often accompanied by opportunity. Consider, for instance, the prevalence of mental illnesses in contemporary society characterized by disordered or otherwise unhealthy experiences of selfhood. It would be foolish and probably even dangerous to suggest that tulpa creation techniques are a cure for serious illnesses like depression. However, it is conceivable that a concerted scientific investigation of tulpa-like phenomena might help us gain a better understanding of how self-constructs form in the first place, and in doing so facilitate the development of reliable techniques for manipulating them. I hope that this video has convinced you that there is something to be gained from studying and engaging with the tulpa creation community, even if you have no interest in creating a tulpa yourself. Thanks for watching.